I don't believe kids necessarily believe that they deserve to be treated well.
Whoa.
I think that the girls or boys used to who would stand up for the person being bullied have become fewer and fewer because of that lack of self-worth. And so I'm watching more really kind kids who are a part of a group bullying other kids simply because they don't know how to say, not only that's not okay, but I don't want to be your friend when you're treating other people like that. They're so desperate for that sense of belonging that they'll sacrifice who they are and what they believe for it.
I also think there are fewer kids who are standing up because they see that that can happen to them. And it is hard to track because a lot of this happens through screens.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Paula Faris Show. I'm your host, Paula. So glad you're here. And we are wrapping our month-long series on teenagers and parenting with a conversation about teen dating and friendships. Once again, my husband, John, is going to be joining me for this conversation, as well as therapist Sissy Goff and Niro Feliciano. We'll talk about why it is necessary. Yes, you heard that right, why it's necessary for our teens to date, but their concerns about dating. And this is really fascinating because psychologists said that we would see the effects of COVID and isolation on our kids years down the road. And both Sissy and Niro are saying we are seeing it now and how teen relationships and teen friendships are playing out. It's really interesting to hear them explain it, but we'll talk about that. And something that Sissy said that totally shocked me was this. She said that teenagers don't believe that they deserve to be treated well. It's heartbreaking, right, to hear that. But that's something we're going to explore throughout this conversation. And it's really at the crux of why we're seeing such intense dating relationships and we're seeing more mean girl behavior than really ever before. We always go deeper into these conversations in my personal newsletter. If you haven't signed up, make sure you do so at paulafarisofficial.com. I keep it real about what it's like to be a working mom in America, but again, we go deeper into these conversations. I also like to give you a sneak peek into what's coming up on the podcast. Next month, we're doing a series on menopause and women's health. And then we have a series on midlife and then a series on grief and loss. But I take you behind the scenes. You hear things first in the newsletter. So if you haven't signed up, paulafarisofficial.com is where it's at. As usual, stick around for my takeaways after the conversations. But here it is, the finale on our series of teens and parenting. And we are talking about teen dating and friendship and how to help them navigate boundaries and breakups.
I'm not good. I can't help on this topic because I don't want any of my kids to date. So. Especially Carolyn.
Okay, I think that's where we should pick it up. John, I think you're actually ideal on this topic.
Okay. Why is that?
Because you don't want our kids to date. And as Sissy and Niro will probably tell you, it's necessary for our teens to date.
I say that in a joking way because she's my firstborn. She's beautiful. I love her. I want to protect her forever and ever. And, I want her to be daddy's girl. No, I want her to only love me and no other man. But I know that's not reality. I know it's good for her to go out there and experience dating, experience friendships, experience hurt, loss. This is going to help her through her life. But it's still, hard as the dad.
And
First time around.
Yes. And on that note, let's talk about teen dating and friendship. Let's dive right in. And John, are you saying, John, that you don't really care about our boys dating? You just mentioned Caroline. So you don't really care if they date?
Yeah, it's different. I think the way I look at it between boys and girls as the father, it will be different. Like, I want to protect her. The boys, they're going to go do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I know JJ, he doesn't even care about girls right now. All he cares about is basketball. And then Landon, we don't have to worry about him for a few years. He's only 11. So it's more real with Caroline because she's 17 and currently in that dating process.
Yeah, she has a boyfriend. Okay, so Sissy, you and I and David Thomas, we actually had a whole conversation about teen dating and why it's necessary. And Niro, I'd love to hear your take on this as well. Teen dating can be really tough to navigate. What Sissy and David concluded was that it's necessary for a couple of reasons. And I know a lot of parents aren't going to like to hear this, but it's necessary for two reasons: to learn how to attract quality people, and also to learn how to have interpersonal communicative skills with the opposite sex, because you're going to have to eventually work with people of the opposite sex. So those are two powerful reasons why your teens should date. But
Can I tweak a word?
tweak away, please.
I would say even more than to learn how to attract quality people, it's to learn how to require quality people.
That's good.
Mm.
Yes, that's
Mhm.
good. I like that. Because you're discerning who
Yes.
you want
Yes.
to be in your circle. Okay, so let's dive into this. Teen dating. There are a lot of concerns when some of the relationships that I see lately amongst teenagers are very concerning. They want their significant other to be their everything, and they're so grossly involved, and their expectations of these relationships are not healthy. They want this person to be their sun, moon, and stars, their best friend, their love, their mother. I mean, I see a lot of boys, especially, who are extremely attached to their girlfriends and they want them to be everything. And I see the same thing with girls. What are you guys seeing in your offices, in your counseling offices about teens and dating and things that might concern you when it comes to this particular topic?
I think a couple of things I'm seeing. I always love hearing what you're seeing too, Niro. But I think one is that, like we talked about, casual dating doesn't seem to exist anymore. It is serial, very intense, very emotional.
Yes.
The types of connections kids have. And I think that's part of, to me, the concern is that I don't even think they're learning as much about requiring because they're only having experience with one person that they date for years. And I think it leads to, I think we talked about when we were on the conversation before that it's easy, I think, often for girls to confuse intensity and intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like there are a lot of girls in very intense relationships. And I think that is so problematic because they end up, problematic in so many ways, but they end up cutting themselves off from their friendships. And as we've talked about, with the rates of anxiety, with social media, I think girls are meaner than they've ever been. And so it's a lot easier in a lot of ways to have this one boy, this one person that I have this intimate relationship with, and I don't have to work hard for other relationships. And I would tend to say boys are doing the same, that it becomes their fallback, as you said, not just their person that they want to complete them. And I really do believe in a lot of ways they think that's what's going to happen. But it's like a fallback person too. So I don't have to work at developing friendships or taking risks, even relationally.
Niro, do you see that these relationships are just too intense? And that's not saying that I want my teenagers to date because I see the value in it, unlike my husband who doesn't. I'm kidding, John. But are you seeing that teenage relationships are just they're either really, really hot or they're not? They're not even dating.
Yes. Yeah, there is this intensity to it. And like Sissy said, we don't see the casual dating anymore. It is pretty serious fast. And I know we talked about how tech is related to everything, but I do think it also has impacted this. So I remember seeing this teen years ago, and she was nervous about going on a face-to-face date because she had only communicated with this person through messaging. And I do think their ability now, between the busyness of schedules and overscheduling and screens, their ability to spend extended amounts of time in person with people for some kids is very limited. And Sissy was talking about how kids are having trouble, in their interpersonal interactions with people. So when they find this person, it is kind of a relief for them. But what we're seeing is that a lot of kids, girls, they're tolerating behaviors, whether it's in friend groups or in a relationship, that are unhealthy behaviors. They're putting up with
Yes.
a lot more than I think they have in the past. And there is also this fear of being alone. I have seen this with kids as well. They're looking for this place of belonging more so than I feel like I've seen in a long time. And again, I think that part of that is because things are documented. They're posting that they're with their friends or they're with this person, and everything is out for public opinion and viewing. So it adds this extra level of pressure to have either a place of belonging, whether it's with friends or this relationship. And I think that has lended to the intensity of needing it as well.
Why do you think that is? And I know just as a general population, we're experiencing a loneliness epidemic amongst adults too. Record numbers. We're more connected, but we're more disconnected than we've ever been. What do you think is the root behind kids being in these really intense relationships and wanting that connection, not really knowing how to connect, but then looking for too much from these relationships, and they're just way too intense. They're not appropriate relationships at this level. So what do you think is that root? What's the thing behind the thing?
I do think, again, so many of these issues are multifactorial.
Mm-hmm.
And especially post-COVID, I feel like their interpersonal interactions have been distorted in many different ways. As Sissy said, there is this lack of empathy that we're seeing in these generations, and that's actually been studied. The kids are becoming a little bit more narcissistic, a little bit less empathic. So there is this meanness to many of these relationships, and especially, I would say, amongst girls. Sissy, would you say that too?
Yes,
The girl
absolutely.
relationships, the kind of
Yes.
insidious text group chat bullying that occurs where girls are kicked off and then put back on. So I
Ugh.
think that's also fueled this need to have a place where they feel like they belong. And that has either kind of transpired as this intense relationship or this type of friend group where basically kids can treat each other the way they want to treat each other. And it is tolerated. The behavior is tolerated. But I also think part of that is because for especially that sixth, seventh, eighth grade, coming up ninth grade generation, where their in-person interaction essentially was arrested at the age group that it was in 2020. There was a lot of social and emotional development that happens through interpersonal play,
Mm-hmm.
face-to-face interaction that didn't happen. So that now we're seeing, and psychologists said we're going to see the effect of this years ahead. And we didn't quite know what they were talking about at the time, but it's this. It has
It is this.
affected the way that they navigate themselves in relationships and the intensity, the need for someone, that fear of being alone and being isolated. And especially because, again, everybody knows your business all the time.
All the time.
So there's a certain image that you have to keep up that has added to that pressure. And I think what we're seing in relationships. I'm curious to know, Sissy, what
Yes. And Sissy,
also observed.
why is it tolerated? You mentioned, Niro, that it's tolerated. Sissy, why are you, or is it parents that are tolerating it? Is it just that maybe we don't know it's happening and we're clueless? And I'm not just talking about parents, but other adults, educators, administrators. Do we not know it's happening?
I think sometimes we don't know what's happening, but I also think that it's part of this epidemic, like we've been talking about, of mental health too. Whereas I don't believe kids necessarily believe that they deserve to be treated well.
Whoa. Okay.
I think there is a sense of that among girls. I think it's insidious is a great word, Niro. I think that the girls or boys used to who would stand up for the person being bullied have become fewer and fewer because of that lack of self-worth. And so I'm watching more really kind kids who are a part of a group bullying other kids simply because they don't know how to say, not only that's not okay, but I don't want to be your friend when you're treating other people like that. They're so desperate for that sense of belonging, Niro, that you're talking about, that they'll sacrifice who they are and what they believe for it.
I also think there are fewer kids who are standing up because they see that that can happen to them. And it is hard to track because a lot of this happens through screens.
Yes.
The exclusion piece of it happens through screens. All of a sudden they are kicked off of group chat. That is kind of the new face of bullying for girls. These groups, especially that happen through the phones.
John,
yes.
Did you know that they can kick each other? Wait, they're kicking each other off of Snapchat. So are they blocking? Did you know that this existed, John?
I did not. I actually want to get kicked out of most of my group chats. They're very annoying when I just get like 30 texts from a random group that I'm friends with. I'm like, I don't want to read all these. So I'd like to be bullied and kicked out. But
you have to meet my husband. He leaves every single group chat. You'll see his name.
Yeah.
You know,
That's amazing.
Okay, you guys, so I'm almost 50 years old and I am in the throes of perimenopause. I did not think that a good night's sleep was possible. Here's how it usually plays out in my home. I'll go to bed and I'm freezing and I pile a ton of covers on, and then I wake up in the middle of the night and then I have to shed all of those covers. This is a vicious cycle that I have been in for over 10 years until now because of Cozy Earth's bamboo sheets. You need to run, not walk, but run to get yourself a set of these sheets. They are made from bamboo. They naturally wick away the heat and the moisture from your body, so they help you to sleep several degrees cooler. I promise you, you're going to get the best sleep of your life. They also have a 10-year warranty and a 100-night sleep trial, so try them out. If you don't love them, if you aren't sleeping cooler, return them hassle-free, but trust me, you're going to want to keep them. And right now, you can get 40% off if you use my code Paula. Go to CozyEarth.com, use the code Paula, 40% off. Run, don't walk to get yourself a set of these sheets, because your bed should be more than a place to sleep. It should be your happy place. And Cozy Earth makes that possible and a whole lot cooler.
I do want to say one thing on just this topic of dating. And I think a lot of young people don't have the right perspective when they come into a dating relationship. And you'll remember, Paula, I told Caroline, our daughter, and her current boyfriend, I said this in front of them. I said, I just want you to understand that statistically, you are dating someone else's future spouse. So with knowing that, why don't you proceed in this relationship? And I think we get so consumed that, oh, you're my forever. I mean, you're 17 years old, you're 18 years old. Reality is you don't really find most of the time. But that's why I say statistically speaking, you're going to date several people, and it might be into your early 20s, even 30s or 40s before you find that right person you're ready to settle down. So I think we just get too consumed. And if we just had more perspective on like, what is this really? This is just an opportunity to get to know somebody, to get to learn about them, get to learn about how to interact with a significant other of the opposite sex. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think having realistic expectations of what the purpose of teen dating is. And again, like you said, Sissy, thank you for clarifying how to require quality people in your circle, but also building those interpersonal communicative skills with the opposite sex. But Sissy and Niro, what John failed to mention was he pretty much blacked out when Caroline started dating. She was supposed to go out on a date with the young man, and he was on his way over. John was not going to be there. I was not going to be there. And we require... we're a little old school traditional. If you're going to take our daughter out, especially, you got to come to the door, knock on the door, walk in the house. You can't just honk your horn. No, you come in, you meet us, you talk to us, you get to know us, because if you're going to date our daughter, you're also going to be kind of part of the family. So John is on a call. I can't remember how it went down, but.
Yeah, Caroline, I said, Caroline, put him on speaker. And we had this conversation, and I expressed my feelings, and I expressed the importance of having perspective and understanding the reality of the situation. And we all kind of laughed. I think he was a little frightened, which is good.
Good.
And it's exactly what I wanted to accomplish.
Well, I don't think it's like show up at my door with a gun, with a shotgun or anything like that. But I also think our daughter appreciated the fact that we value her enough that and respect yourself enough. Sissy, to your point, you say that they don't believe they deserve to be treated well. We believe she deserves to be treated well. These are our rules. If you want to date our daughter because you are worthy, what can we do as parents to foster that with our daughters especially, and our sons, to believe you do deserve to be treated well? Yeah, maybe we're old school, we're a little traditional, but how do we foster that?
I think we have to model it first and foremost. If you and I don't model what a healthy relationship looks like, how are they going to ever go out and, model that? So I think that's where it starts. And unfortunately, a lot of times the mother or the father, it can be a little contentious, and that's all they've seen. So that's all that they know. And so then their relationships end up being, the same thing that they saw their parents do.
Yeah, and I'll let you respond, Sissy, because I think I've asked you 4 questions and haven't let you respond yet. But John and I got into probably one of our biggest fights a couple of weeks ago. And, a lot of this is
top 10. It wasn't the biggest.
It was one of the biggest fights we've been in, and our kids witnessed it. And I know some people say don't fight around your kids. we kind of are under the camp of letting them in a respectful way, letting them witness it and see how we work through it. We're not always going to handle it how we should, but we're going to work through it. We're going to fight for our family. We're going to fight for each other. And then we're going to apologize when we need to apologize. And we're going to be quick to forgive. So letting our kids see that and modeling the imperfection, modeling the ups and downs in a relationship. But back, Sissy, how can we model this, especially for our daughters, that they deserve to be treated well? Because that was, when you said that, that was alarming, that girls don't really believe that they deserve to be treated well. How can we foster that with our girls?
Probably a lot of ways. I mean, I think some of it is just the attention we pay her, the questions that we ask, the way we are interested in her daily life, the way we value time with her. I mean, I think there's silly things like one of my favorite stories is a friend of mine who's one of the most confident women I know talked about when she was growing up, every time she walked down the stairs, her dad whistled the theme song to Miss America. Didn't matter what she had on. And I love that he was saying more than anything else. I mean, we could talk about pageants and all that, but he was saying, when you walk in the room, I'm going to pay attention to you. I'm going to stop and notice that you've walked into the room with me. And I'm going to remind you that I value you. I mean, that's so simple and it's beautiful. And I have another girl whose dad took her on a date and treated her really well. And at the end said, this is how I want every guy who ever takes you out to treat you. And things like that we can do where dads can step in. And if she doesn't have a dad who will do that, grandfathers can do that. Uncles can do that.
Yes.
I've seen so many girls who have other men. But I think, honestly, this is a whole different topic, but I think one of the most problematic and erosive, is that a word?
Yes, it is. Yes,
erosive aspects of a girl's life is her mother. And how her mother treats her. Because I think moms are more critical of girls often than they are of boys.
100%.
So it's not just dads. And let me add one more thing to the mix. I, in the last month, have thought, I'm going to start talking really strongly to women about their relationship with each other. Because I think some of this mean girl stuff anymore, I think mothers are, I literally had a conversation with a woman this week whose friends all kicked her off a group chat and stopped talking to her. And she doesn't know what she did. I mean, that's crazy. We're adults. We know how to have conversations. And so I think, John, back to your point, what we're modeling is huge and crucial and transformative for them.
That's sad. And yeah, we don't always handle it correctly as adults, but
right.
Yeah. And how could we expect them to respond any differently if we're modeling the behavior, good or bad? Right?
Yes.
Sorry, Niro, I didn't mean to interrupt. You were going to say
No,
something.
you didn't. And I think that's so important, Sissy, because we do see that behavior in the parents as well. And I see mainly adults. I've always said, I wrote it in my first book, I have the same conversations with 12-year-old girls as I do 42-year-old women. The same topics about exclusion and, oh, I saw my friends on social media get together and I was not invited and my child was not invited. Some of the same conversations. So I think that message is really needed, Sissy. Back to the whole dating situation. We've had many conversations. Only one of my kids, my oldest daughter, has been in, it was a pretty longer term dating relationship. It was 2.5 years. But there were many conversations that again, that goes back to kind of the long game for dating with them now, not casual dating. But one of the things we really talked about from the beginning was balance. You know, who is in your life that's important and how are you going to now manage your time for your relationships? It's
So
not
good.
just about schoolwork and sports, but now you have these girlfriends who statistically as well are going to be around when this relationship ends, you know? So how are you going to spend time with them? And then, you know, whatever time you spend with your family and then with this person. And the great thing too is she was well matched in that he was just as busy as her. So they all had other things going on. They did not have the life where they could make each other their everything, which we advised against, you know, for a successful relationship as well. But I think what you said, John, about modeling is so key. And even modeling the fact that, look, when we both came into a relationship, we came from really different backgrounds. We had to do a lot of work. there was a lot of conversations. There was a lot of hard things we had to work through. And that's really going to be the case for most people that you meet.
Yeah.
Just so you can kind of break that myth that everything should be perfect in order for it to be good. It's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
So, having those conversations, I think, in real time is really important as well.
I want to ask all of you about boundaries, and we'll wrap up the conversation. But you did mention something about high school dating. I heard it once said that high school is about finding the bridesmaids, not necessarily the groom. And I thought that was really, really interesting.
I love that.
I love that.
Isn't that
Yes.
I can't take any credit. But again, I can't remember where I saw it because I have no memory because of perimenopause. It's just a really fun thing to navigate all of this, right, Niro, while we're perimenopausal and, launching our kids and dealing with teenagers and everything that comes with it.
They say we have all the same hormones as a teenager without the metabolism.
That's good.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Talking about healthy boundaries when it comes to dating. John, you have 2 rules in our house when it comes to boundaries. What do you say?
Yeah. No blankets and no
bees.
bedrooms. So you can't lay on the couch and cover up with a blanket. I don't want that in my house, and you can't go to my daughter's bedroom. So no blankets, no bedrooms.
Yep.
That's a great boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Simple. You can remember it.
Yep.
Starts with the same letter.
Very good.
So.
I think that's great. That's great. I have a friend of mine who says that when kids come over to her house, she turns up the heat in the house so they won't want blankets, and then she kicks them all out of the living room. She's like,
Paula,
there's
I've offered sweatshirts too. I was like, hey guys, if you're cold, I can get some sweatshirts for you. or you can have your own blankets, but they're going to be individual blankets.
We've also said you can't be alone in the house when we're not home with that person. And we said that from the beginning because my daughter started this relationship towards the end of her freshman year. And I remember a year later, I was getting this phone call because we were on the way home and the boyfriend actually got there before we did. And she called me and she said, Mom, I just want to let you know, I know you're on your way home. He's here. And I was like, how's it going? She goes, no, I know, 6 feet apart and room for Jesus. And I was like, you got it.
Yes.
You got it.
That's good.
Boundary understood.
Yes.
But yeah, those very specific maybe not that one, but very specific boundaries are needed. And you need to be clear about it at the beginning.
Yep.
And I also think, those boundaries may change over time, especially the fact that these kids are in these longer term relationships. So I would say, don't be afraid to set those boundaries and keep them firm like that from the get-go.
Yeah, that's good. And Sissy, I want to ask you about boundaries. One thing that John and I always say, and we tell our kids this, John is not my better half, and I'm not his better half. We are whole individuals. We are free thinking. We're going to differ on a lot of things, but you can't expect anybody else to complete you. You need to be whole. You can't look for the other person to complete a part of you that's missing. So you need to always work on becoming the healthiest version of yourself. It's always funny when we say, John, you're my better whole, but with the W. But that's something that we encourage too. We also encourage them, spend time with your friends, spend time with your family, and then spend time with your significant other. But you have to keep those in balance. And if they're not in balance, then the relationship's not really going to be healthy. So that's one thing. Another thing that we encourage. What are some healthy boundaries that you've seen in your practice, Sissy?
Well, that's one I would echo that you just said, Paula. And we may have talked about this when David and I were on, but I remember a mom saying to her daughter, you can have one night with your boyfriend per weekend, and the other night is going to be for your friends. And I think it's fair to include, and Sundays is going to be for your family, that you just are kind of requiring balance because, again, they're not going to inherently know that, especially in this world today.
Yeah, no, that's good. Anything that you guys want to say about encouraging our kids to attract or to require healthy friendships and how they can foster healthy friendships too? Because we know, like you said, teens can be really mean, especially girls. So how can we foster healthy friendships amongst our teenagers?
My favorite word, I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but my favorite word for parenting teenagers is breezy.
Mm-hmm.
that I think it's often our intensity that shuts them down. And so I think it is so important to think about. I mean, Niro, I feel like you have said the word communication so many times, and I'm so grateful because I feel like to keep the lines of communication open is, paramount for raising adolescents, because when we are overreacting, when we have more emotion than the situation warrants or more emotion than they do, I think that is one of the first pathways to them shutting down and not talking to us any longer. And so obviously we still have boundaries. We still have consequences when we need to, all those things. We're still the parent. But when we can be breezy in conversation, then I think they feel more like my parent is safe to talk to.
Yep, that's good. That's really good.
And know when to not to talk about things too. I think that's important. A lot of times one runs the right way. My husband actually reminds me of that all the time. He's like, this is not the time. This is not the time. I was like,
John.
Great, okay. Yes. Yeah. So that's it too. So I think that's really important. But back to the friendship piece too, we have to help these girls, especially younger ones, middle school age, recognize that if they're friends with someone engaging in mean behavior, that can easily turn around towards them. Not just, that's not the reason not to participate in it, but also to be aware that this person is someone who does not have a problem acting like that, right? And you have to think through, is this someone who's going to be a good friend? You're seeing the way they act towards other people, but also to you. Because girls are aware of that. They're aware of losing their place amongst friends. But I think talking about that behavior is going to be important. And because they're a little bit more self-focused at this age, framing it in that context tends to resonate with them a little bit more.
So good.
So good, ladies. And I know we have to wrap up. John, are you good? Are you dropped? He's probably left 4 group chats during this.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I know. Including one group chat you haven't left is our family group chat with the 5 of us. So you'll never leave that one.
I'll never leave that one. Even if you try to kick me out, I'll come back.
Never kick you out. Ladies and gentleman, John, this has been awesome.
Oh, Paula, thanks for inviting us. It's been so fun.
A lot of things were working against us. The internet kept cutting out. The dogs were barking. The storms were storming.
A tummy bug potentially.
Tummy bug potentially. But it happened, and I'm really grateful for these conversations, you guys. It's been a really great series. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We're honored to be a part of it.
Oh,
and can I say one thing, Paula?
Of course.
Parents need to give themselves grace.
Yes.
And just know, even experts call experts. That's how I'm on this podcast, because that's the expert that I call for advice, Sissy. So we all are going to get some things right and some things wrong, no matter how much knowledge you have. But just keep going. Give yourself grace, because then you're modeling that for your kids as well.
Oh, that's
Amen.
So good. That's so good. Thank you for recommending Niro to us, Sissy. This is Niro. You're just the perfect fit.
She is a brilliant delight.
She is.
Thank you.
Oh, God bless you all. It's
You
so good
too.
to see you.
Thanks, you too. See you next time.
My takeaways are coming up in just a second, but I want to say thank you for joining me all month long on this series about teens and parenting. Whether you watched on YouTube or you just listened, I'm grateful for you. And I want to let you know these conversations are always derived from what you are telling me you're going through, and also what I'm going through. So these are very real issues, and I'm trying to address them, head on in a very real and authentic way. So thank you for joining me this month. And I hope you share this entire series with your friends and family, and you share this podcast with your friends and family, and just keep it going. It really means a lot to me. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you haven't rated, rate it. If you haven't reviewed, write a review. It means a lot, and it ensures that these conversations can keep going. Okay, it is time for my takeaways. And the biggest one, it is necessary for our teens to date to learn how to require quality people, but also to help them develop interpersonal skills and communication with the opposite sex, because they're going to have to eventually work with men and women. So it is necessary, but also having realistic expectations of it. I thought what Niro and Sissy had to say was so fascinating, that girls are confusing intensity with intimacy. And when I asked why relationships feel more intense, why teens aren't dating casually anymore, they said so much of it has to do with the pandemic and COVID. We're starting to see the fallout manifest in our kids' lives because that interpersonal interaction, it's been distorted in a lot of ways. And so kids are less empathetic since COVID. And then it's fueled a need to feel like they belong. So that's also fueled this need to have a place where they feel like they belong. And that often transpires into an intense relationship. I thought that was just really fascinating, the impact of the pandemic and the isolation and not having that interpersonal communication, that face-to-face communication, how that's now impacting. And we're seeing it in very real ways. But Niro says, she's having that same conversation with young girls as she is with 40-year-old women about exclusion. And we need to model this behavior for our children. We need to know when to talk about things. We have to help girls recognize that if they're friends with someone who is engaging in mean behavior, that it can quickly turn around on them, that they need to be aware that this person is someone who doesn't have a problem reacting, and really encourage our teens to ask this question: is this someone that I want to be friends with? Because, girls are so aware of losing their place. Talk about the behavior with them. Is this somebody you really want to be friends with? You saw how they quickly turned, on someone else. So be careful who you have in your circle. Niro said, give yourself grace. Even experts call experts. I mean, Niro is a cognitive psychotherapist, and she calls to seek Goff for help when it comes to parenting. So as parents, we have to give ourselves grace. And then what we're doing when we give ourselves grace is we're modeling that behavior to our kids, that they also need to give themselves grace. When it comes to dating and boundaries, be clear about the boundaries from the beginning. My husband said no blankets and no bedrooms. Yes, the boundaries might change a little bit, but be clear and require those boundaries from the beginning. And as Sissy said, be breezy. When it comes to all of these issues, don't overreact, because when we do overreact, we shut down. They don't talk to us, and we do want to keep the lines of communication open with our teenagers. So be breezy in conversation. That helps our teens feel like they are safe. Okay, that wraps our series, our month-long series on teens and parenting. And super grateful to Sissy Goff and Niro Feliciano. If you're not following them on Instagram, make sure you're doing so. I will link to all of their assets in the show notes and ways that you can reach out to them. But big thanks to Sissy and Niro and my husband, John. He really had no choice in the matter. But a big thanks to all of them for joining me in conversation this month. And I can't wait, because next week we are kicking off a series about menopause and women's health. And all month long, we're going to be joined by Dr. Jen Ashton, who is the founder of Agenda and the former chief medical correspondent at ABC News, as well as the Food Network star, Artie Sequeira. It's going to be a much needed conversation about women's health and menopause, and I can't wait to bring it to you as we kick it off next week and we keep talking about it. Thanks again, everybody. Make sure you rate, subscribe, and review, and keep these conversations going. So grateful for you. See you next week. I know you guys thought you were done with me, but not quite yet. I have one more thing to tell you about. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to subscribe to the show. I don't want you to miss a single beat or a single conversation. And remember, my DMs are always open. Tell me what you want to talk about.